Welcome to another episode of Just More Fix. This is James. With me this episode is Lacey.
Hey.
You can find us online at justonmorefix.com or on Twitter at justonmorefix. If you like us, you can support us at Patreon and you can give us a rating and review at Apple Podcasts, wherever you find us at. In this episode, we're going to geek out about character sheets. And now, it's time to get our gaming fix.
I'm Willie D. Nelson from All Things Good and Nerdy, a pop culture podcast, part of the Gonna Geek Network. Just like the show you're checking out now. Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other tantalizingly geeky shows at GonnaGeekNetwork.com.
Welcome to the episode of Just More Fix. Today we are going to talk about character sheets, as you heard. So I'm not sure exactly how we got onto this, but to start this off, there was a small discussion that happened before we were recording our last episode about where Lacey said you don't like two-sided character sheets. So it kind of led into a bigger discussion. We thought maybe...
I mentioned it in the episode.
Oh, was it in the episode?
Yeah.
Okay, I can't. Either way. But
I
so we kind of thought, we spent a lot of time talking about games, and like when we were do reviews, we talk about the layout and all that kind of stuff and information design. And I don't think we've ever taken the time to really discuss character sheets themselves. And it's kind of strange because outside of the rule books, this is the number one thing you interface with for the game, and we haven't really talked about it hardly at all. And I would say you even use your character sheet more than you do your dice, right? You think that's fair?
Yeah.
Okay. So you may hear some paper shuffling in this episode because I think we have, I don't know, something like 30 different character sheets spread out across the table. And this is just what we happen to have printed up for games right now that aren't really being used. So it's a good assortment of things, I think. Try not to have too much overlap and duplicate. 2025? Okay. Either way. Okay. So to start this off, two-sided character sheet, no. Why?
I want nobody ever enough places right, and I don't want just gonna. If I lose a character sheet, the game is over anyway, so I don't need the notes.
See, I'm the other opposite way. I don't want to have all the notes. Like I may write some like names in the margin of like NPCs and the other characters in the you know, but I usually
don't remember anything.
True, but if there is a note section on the character sheet, then I only write really, really important things, right? But if I have a sheet with notes, or if I'm taking notes, it's on a separate in and of itself, and then I don't know.
I also get all of. So if it's, it's double-sided. I would rather you print it for me 2 pages because I don't like to have to.
Oh, to do the flippy floppy.
Oh, which side is it on? I don't remember.
Right.
I want to see the whole thing all at once.
And I agree with that because like White Wolf character sheets, they have a 1-page, a 2-page, and a 4-page, right? The 4-page I think is a bit excessive, but usually like at that level, you're not going to use all the little spaces because it's got like breakouts for backgrounds and stuff and whatever. But like,
well, and there's some stuff like the back of the trilogy, right? Is basically like they divided my notes into sections for me,
right.
Which is fine. Like I'm okay with that.
Structured note page.
Yeah. So, there's a place for contacts, there's a place for some extras in general. That's kind of how I've broken it down except it actually kind of helps me organize ideas. Like when I write, it's like there's something here and then there's like a doodle on the side margin on the front.
That's my thing is sometimes when I'm taking notes for games, I find that, and this is even true when I'm running games, my stuff is all over the place. So it's kind of hard to keep in context for things. So like in the best system that I have found, at least for me with notes and running games, was that for Night Witches, I'd take there's 4 players. So I took a piece of paper and I folded it in quarters and it correlated to where you guys sat at the table and you all never changed where you were sitting. You always had the same seats or whatever. And then if it was a general thing for everyone, it was written down in the middle. So kind of tying back to this, it's nice to have that little bit of structure because as a character, you're not trying to manage as much maybe, so it's nice to have some structure.
Like D&D and LOTF kind of like that just back there. There's generally some extra space so you're not necessarily for anything else anyway.
So I guess...
Well, I guess...
Yes, yeah. On some of them, when they have the backside, like, so the LTFP character sheet's the best example of it in my mind, right? Basically, everything I need for this character is on the front, right? It's going to spend, probably 80% of the time, everything I need is right here.
Yeah.
Right. So that I guess I don't mind so much because I don't have to be flippy flopping back and forth, but I don't want to have statistic stuff on both sides of the character sheet, right?
Yeah, I agree. Like,
too much
First of all, if your system is that complicated, decrease your system. All right, because I just don't want to play it.
So, and we'll get there, yeah. So, right on. All right, so I agree with you there. What about things like Mork Borg, where it's just that half page? Do you feel like that's too condensed down? Do you feel like...
I think it's the perfect size character sheet for the system.
For the game it is, okay.
But if I was going to print it, I would rather just print a whole sheet of paper and leave myself the rest of the space for notes.
For rooming, for writing.
Or whatever. Okay. How do you want me to tell you other things about characters first? You want to just go to characters one?
Well, I thought we might kind of... So let me start with where I was first starting kind of talking about this a little bit. You said hang on stop and don't go anywhere.
Yeah,
So
because that was one of my grievances that you were mentioning.
yeah, so when I pick up a new game, the first thing I do is I look at it. I might flip through and look at some of the artwork, but only briefly. And then the next thing I do is I go back and look at the character, right? Because whatever's on the character sheet, whatever they took the time to make space for on the character sheet, they are telling you if it's put together well, this is you're going to deal with in the game, and this is what's important to the game, right? So if you see that, long skill lists and that kind of stuff, if you see lots of spots for modifiers on the sheet, right, it tells you what's important to it. If you look at White Wolf character sheets, you see hunger or blood pool and those kind of things. It sort of tells you what the system of the game is tracking and where it's going. So it gives you some kind of idea of how many fiddly bits there are and what the game is focusing on, right? Mm-hmm. That's in an ideal situation, because I have seen some games where the mechanics of the game don't necessarily line up with the setting per se or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like the genre concedes and that kind of stuff. So if it's put together well, then ideally those things should match, right? And it's just like the quick way to go to the back and be like, bam, this is what it is, and I know what I've got, right? Okay. So with that, these are all games that we play or have played or tried and don't really play anymore. So should be pretty obvious because we talk about the games we play quite a bit. But so where do you want to start with? What do you think?
I'm still thinking list of things, and we can go on to things I do like.
Very good.
So first and foremost, branding. I feel like if I pick up your character sheet, it ought to say the name of your game on the character sheet. Otherwise, what are we even like?
Well, it also serves two functions too, because then when you go to find the character sheet, if you're playing in several games, you have your stack of character sheets, right? You're thumbing through. No, this is the one I'm.
Well, and people put a lot of thought into what they're going to name their game, how they're going to cover design, word art and all of that. And so it's basically like a free thing you can stamp on your character sheet to give it the flavor of the game that you are playing.
Well, and then if you do a good job of laying the character sheet out and designing it, the character sheet sells the game, right? Yeah. It's actually a small piece of artwork, not super involved or whatever. It's not so custom of a character sheet that you can't find where things are on it, but it
if you only have one book, this character sheet may be the only thing from the physical game itself that your players actually see.
Right. I think a great example of this is like White Wolf. It's got the name on the top of the character sheet. All of them have some sort of thematic border that goes around them. Mm-hmm. If you print in color or whatever, the color of the character sheet is always connected to the themes of the game. So like Vampire's red,
there's
green.
Pluses and minuses to their character sheets as well. But the thing that I like most about them is everything is laid out in the same way from game to game. So whether you're playing Changeling or Wraith or Vampire, I know that my attributes are going to be at the top, then my skills are going to be next, and then, and it's all just laid out in a very similar way. So you can just pick it up, and if you've made a White Wolf character sheet before, White Wolf character, then you know
exactly
more or less where to find everything.
Right. No, and then at the same time, they're all very much the same, but they're also very much stylized to their own thing because font choice and the border on it and all kinds of stuff. So like they are exactly the same, but
so I guess since we're discussing that thing anyway, how do you feel about art on character sheets in general?
I back and forth. So I'm going to use this example. Mouse guard here. This is great. Now I don't like the mouse guard sheet has a background color, which I generally don't like because it muddies the character sheet when you're going to write on it. Right?
And it uses your ink if you're printing out a lot of it.
Now this one is printed in color because workplace printers are cool. But when you go to write on it, it gets a little muddy sometimes and it's hard to tell. Now, what I think is funny is the areas where you're supposed to write, they have pulled the color out to it's white. And I'm just kind of like, why do you have these white boxes with the tan background? It kind of makes me a little crazy. So just make the character sheet white. Okay. And that ties into the artwork as well, because sometimes then you end up with textures in the background and that kind of stuff. So it can be a little funny and difficult. But that said, I like how in this one in Mouse Guard, when your mouse carries equipment, you're supposed to draw it on the mouse. Mm-hmm. So there's not really an encumbrance thing you track. You just draw it on the mouse. So if you're carrying a two-handed sword for a mouse, you draw it on there.
That's probably my single favorite way to do encumbrance, and also character pictures. Mm-hmm. I loathe the empty shield box on the D&D character sheet with the passion of 1,000 fires.
Well, and that's the thing is, even if you're not a great artist, right?
Yeah, there's already a perfectly sketched mouse there. You just have to add detail.
And it's very plain. So all you have to do is color, and you could like, I've got a scar, so you do your bad guy scar across the eyeball or whatever, and I'm going to have my cloak. So I think the only thing where I see would be a problem in a D&D game is whether or not your character is wiry or muscly or, hippie or whatever it is, right?
Maybe you don't.
Well, yes, but I think for a lot of things, though, you're looking at like where it's just one character sheet that rolls out, and that's what a lot of, because sometimes it gets a little fiddly where you've got 10 different kinds of character sheet, right? And I think that's where things get a little kind of funny. But I think you could do just a generalized, hey, here's a regular humanoid shape, right? And you can add whatever, muscles or whatever you want to add to it. Just add it and it's okay. But the mouse guard is, I think this is the coolest way to do a character.
And it works
portrait.
super well for mouse guard because
Exactly.
they're generally mouse shaped.
Right. So, right on. And the same thing, the backside of this character sheet.
It's super big.
Yeah. So...
Yeah. And if you look at the other,
it's very busy as well.
Busy.
No, I agree.
No, it's a system heavy game, and I get some of the extra pieces added by the experience tracker, which I actually greatly appreciate. Because that's a very functional thing for the game. So you have to track it when you roll it.
Well, and then to be fair, the mouse guard sheet, if you cut, there's a rules reference part here. So if you cut that off, it would and spread this out, it would make it much less busy. But I actually enjoy having this quick reference on there as a player, especially if you're not familiar with certain things. Clear, boom, boom, boom. Here's some rules breakdown, right? But yeah, so there's also where I was going with the artwork is that on the disposition section of the character sheet of the mouse guard, it's got these little fiddly bits of a shield and an axe, and it's the black axe from the comic books and all this stuff. And so when there are small fiddly bits of artwork on there, I don't mind them so long as they're not obstructive, right? Yeah. If in this case it's a little big because it's getting into the area where I would need to be writing my numbers. So I think maybe if they had just changed the angle of it or whatever to give more space to write, it may work a little better. But that actually might be one of the logos directly out of the book, and that's why it's that way.
So I realized that this character sheet is square, or square, roughly square. And I'm going to go ahead and hazard a guess that it is the same approximate size. The book is also an odd shape.
Yeah.
However,
it's because they go into a game. The box set is in the game, and they're the same size as all the graphic novels and comics.
I can appreciate that. However, if they had just made this a full sheet of paper, they could have put all the rules on the back. Yeah. Most of the important stuff on the front. It would have spaced it out so it looks significantly less busy. Instead, they sort of scrunched it down. A lot of it is in, I'm going to guess, less than 12-point font. I'm going to guess probably about 10.
That's way less
maybe
than 10.
Even smaller some of it. Like this stuff over here is obviously tiny. If I had any issues with vision at all, I would never be able to read this.
Right. No, I agree.
It just would not happen.
I agree.
So, yes, pretty artwork, but ultimately function is still the important thing.
No, I don't think any of the other ones we have here have much artwork on them. The border, I think, doesn't really count. It adds flavor to it, but it doesn't necessarily...
Depending on the game you're playing, Powered by the Apocalypse are very art-heavy character sheets. Something like Bedlam Hall. Spirit of 77 has a whole classified ads layout on the character sheet.
There's character portraits on Monster Hearts.
Has a whole character portrait.
Right.
So a lot of those character sheets are art-heavy. But they're light.
And it's, but everything's spread out much more. Yeah. And then Morkborg, we kind of already mentioned it. There's, a bird and a skull and that kind of stuff. And it's a very stylized character sheet, but it's not stylized so much to where it's obstructive. I feel like it is the most stylized you can get before you cross over into obstructive. And also there's no textures on it. So the boxes, are white, black, big, thick black borders that are stylized. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So another thing that's me. So D&D has changed a little bit now, but we played a lot of 3rd edition 3.5.
Right.
A hefty amount of that character sheet is taken up by a section for spell, which is only relevant to 2 of the however many classes that you now
okay, yeah.
Every class has spells. But then I'm like, why? So I ended up writing notes in the extra box because it takes up a quarter of the character sheet, and I don't need it at all because I don't want to play a wizard.
I don't disagree.
So why would you not make a separate sheet of paper
spellbook
for spells?
Yeah, no, I agree. That's the way the when we play Lamentations, the character sheets that I print off have a separate spell page, basically, right? And that's the one that I print off. So I have a couple extra of those printed off, and then everyone gets the same basic character sheet, right? But yeah.
Now they've kind of moved to doing cards for spells, but my other thing about character sheets is important to me is if there is something that is going to require an explanation from me or a short write of the rule, you should keep that in mind when designing your character sheet, and you should allow space for that on the character sheet.
So I have a weird question related to those cards, because we don't play a lot of 5e. We play a little bit, but not a lot. But we do play a lot of OSR games, right? So the cards initially, this has been years ago, they produced something that was similar to it, but it's for Monster Game Master use. And I like the idea of them, but the practicality of having them and trying to sort through the box, I always found to be kind of tedious and pain in the butt, right? So I didn't really use them. But as a player, I think those cards are great because now I don't have to have the whole book sitting there, and it's not like flip through it and find it. And hey, I'm casting a spell, you hand me the book.
Yeah, but I'm giving D&D 0 credit for that because the entire Warhammer Fantasy game has all of your abilities on cards. Like, you don't get no credit for that.
No, I agree.
And I loved playing that game. I liked just being able to keep track of the cards, and there was no handing the books back and forth. There was no writing down the pages. There was no trying to make quick notes about what this thing did so I didn't forget. Like, it was all right in front of me.
Do you know something else that I liked about that game, though, that was designed into it, but I don't know if you guys realize that, is that there was only one of every ability and only one of every spell. So when your character...
Forced diversity.
Yes. So it protected what you did. So when you bought whatever feat it was, that one is out of the pool to choose from now, right? And I kind of like the idea of that in the way that BX and LOTFP and that kind of stuff, the classes are protected. So it's like, I'm a fighter, so no one else gets base attack like I do, right? And then specialists, I got the skills, baby. And wizards and, like on down the line. And I really like the idea of that. And even if you get into games where we're talking about, it's not class related, I like that they do that. So like in Gumshoe, when you pick your skills, your investigative skills, right? It kind of encourages you to make sure that you're spreading your points around so that everybody's a different kind of whatever it is, whether it's detective and professor and whatever, reporter. So that way you have all of the bases covered so that...
It's not really 4, though.
No, but you can tell it's encouraged
because... succeed very well.
Yeah, but like the way that they go into it where they're giving you less skill points if you have more players at the table. So it kind of encourages you, unless you just want to go into it knowing, hey, we have this huge hole in any kind of academia skill, right? And you don't want to go into a Lovecraftian game in that kind of a way, right? So yeah, I had completely forgot about, I think it was 3rd edition Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay.
I'm not sure.
It was the one that was produced by Fantasy Flight. And we played it, I don't know, a little bit, not a ton. Yeah.
All those fiddly bits. I should have known.
Because there's one thing that Fantasy Flight is good at is sucking every last penny out of you. Which their production values are so high, what are you going to do? And we're all suckers for fiddly bits. It's just one of those things, so.
Let me ask how you feel about it.
Okay.
First of all, I had to really ponder what game this was completed. But like once or twice. And but this is, I Bust Your Head.
Yes.
I'll tell you.
Okay, so.
First of all, it doesn't say what the game is, which annoys me.
You're right.
But that fact aside.
Okay, so just to let everyone know, the game is Don't Rest Your Head, and you can Google it. The character sheet comes right up. So basically, it's just a series of questions. My name is ... and I am ... What's been keeping you awake? What's been happening to you? What's on the surface? Like, there's a couple questions on a half sheet of paper. And then there's a couple lists of things with like some checkboxes, right? Discipline, permanent madness, current exhaustion, that kind of stuff. So this is a very rules light game. And so in this case, I don't necessarily mind it because I feel like it's only asking you questions. And that game is kind of weird to wrap your head around anyway. So I feel like this gives you enough freedom to just say, figure it out. There's not a wrong answer on this character sheet, basically, right?
Right.
There's barely any answers on this character sheet. So I like it for that. But at the same time, it's very sparse. And if you don't have people that are accustomed to sort of like story games or narrative games and that kind of stuff, I think it makes it hard. So if I like it, but I don't. And the branding makes me crazy because, but what are you going to do? So I also think it works well for the game, like in terms of like the genre and what that game is about. But yeah, no, I was trying to think
you
if there's...
keep going.
No, well, I was kind of trailing off there, but I was trying to think also if there's anything else, any other feelings that I have about it. I don't know. I think that's it.
Okay.
I think it works for a story game. Narrative heavy, rules light.
Yeah, so you don't need a lot of place to write like I like that it leaves you actually enough space to write, even if they're lengthy, you could fit them in there.
Oh, and then sometimes for like there's not a ton of space, but like for some of these I may answer the question that's a longer answer that I have a conversation with the people at the table, but then I write like the Cliff Notes version, but we all know what the answer fully was, right?
Aside from it not having a title as character sheet,
it is as minimalist as you get.
It's sparse and it is without any art. The font is almost like
typeset.
But so if you look at this pretty card, right? And then you hand this to me, this looks like a waiting room sign, which is almost like the right description for this game.
Yeah.
Like it's lack of anything. Like this game is about insomnia, right? And not being able to think and not being able to sleep and feel like you're losing your mind. This looks like what Jack Nicholson typed up when he sat down at the manor in The Shining. You know what I'm saying? Like its lack of anything is a statement in and of itself about what this game is about.
Okay, right on. on. No, I'm right there with you. You said it just way better than I did. But yeah, I was kind of going a little more analytical. But I think you're right, because the character sheet, a great character sheet evokes the feeling of the game just by looking at it.
And that's feel exactly like what you described. A little bit icky and confused looking at it.
Like that's
like, what is this? Is my character sheet? This is what?
Well, and then to be fair, Don't Rest Your Head is an older game, and it's early days of narrative gaming, right? And it's kind of weird on its head anyway, you know?
So I don't know. I look at it and I feel like I should hate it, but I hate it. I like it.
I feel about that one. I have weird feelings about that game because I really like the idea and the concept of that game, and I really hate it because it's really hard to wrap my brain around. Do you know what I'm saying?
It sort of reminds me of the day.
Oh, yeah. Plus, I love Dark. Sorry. I digress. Anyway.
So I just talked about that character. Should talk about this one next.
Okay. So let me tell you about the things that I love about this character sheet. There is something that I truly love about this character. Okay.
Can you tell us what it is first?
Yeah. So, no, I was going to. So this is the Hackmaster. I don't know what edition it is. Let me see. It says on Kenzer. So it's Hackmaster from Kenzer and Company, and it is the newest edition in the really sweet, kick-ass, leather-bound, foil embossed editions.
Exceptionally.
They are wicked nice books, super high production values. Their monster book is wicked cool. So for those of you that don't know, Hackmaster is super high crunch. And there are some things about that game, it's a whole nother episode, that are really cool. And we've kind of talked about them a little bit, that are really, really awesome. But this game is very, very high crunch, right? So think 3rd edition with a whole lot more, right? So this character sheet is very busy. It looks like a spreadsheet because that's what this game breaks combat and that kind of stuff down into.
This looks like high school math.
It does, yeah. So, but let me tell you about the character sheet itself is very busy. It's
2-sided.
It's uber functional like a spreadsheet.
I'm pretty sure that both sides are actually like system stuff too. There's no fluff on the 2 sides of this thing.
So they have this combat profile square thing though. And this is a super rules heavy game, but the way the combat profile, the way it's put together, it's like this square with a diamond in the center of it and it breaks things down. This is really, really well designed for what it does. Now, the game is super crunchy and you may not be into that kind of a game. And this character sheet is kind of a hot mess of accounting. And I'm not going to dispute that or disagree with that at all. But if that's the game you want to play with high levels of system mastery, this is probably the game for you, right? There is nothing higher system mastery wise, I feel like, than Hackmaster, if that's what you're going for, right? That said, though, this makes it way easy to get into. And I think a lot of other games and designers could benefit a lot from looking at how they take a really high crunch system and, for combat at least, for this individual weapon, that combat profile, break it down really, really well and really concisely. Maybe that's why I like it as well. Or don't like it, I don't know. I can see it. No, I can't see it past my thumb. Okay, I'm close enough. But like, other than that, though, I have a hard time with this character sheet. That's actually specifically why I got it out.
The only other thing I will say about the character sheet is that it overcomes another annoyance that I have in character sheets, in that everything that you're supposed to know about your character has a place. Like, there's nothing where you're trying to find it on the character sheet. Where do I write this? Where does this go? Like, everything is labeled. There is a place for everything.
A place for every tool and
except
a tool
my
in
notes,
every place.
but you know.
Well, the other thing is that there's something we haven't even mentioned yet is they actually make good use of color on this character sheet. So it's mostly black and white, but there are areas where there's some red used, and the combat profile uses different colors to color code things, that kind of stuff. Because my thing is if you're going to have a color character sheet, then make the colors matter. If I'm going to take the effort to print it in color, then make that relevant, make it useful, make my interface with the character sheet that much easier, right? So can I jump into something here?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So let me draw 2 comparisons here for you that make me crazy.
Okay.
This one kind of works. So on one side, I have this, let me hang on. This one. I don't know ones that do this. Out. So this has a giant half sheet of paper list of skills.
That is.
And tons of blanks for ones that you may need to fill in.
I kind of like it.
And if we compare any World of Darkness character sheet to Genesis and Trail of Cthulhu, all of the skills, it's a concise list, it's trimmed down, it's clear. There's still some gaps if you need to add some things, right? But I just don't like crazy exhaustive skill lists that are hardly ever relevant to any character when you could use this space so much better and just have a general list that almost everyone's going to take something from, and then a bunch of blanks, right? Because let's be honest, in a D&D style game, if you probably looked at percentage for what skills are going to buy, we're talking a list of probably maybe 10, and then you're going to have a smattering of like, okay, I know deity helm or whatever, religion helm or torm or whatever it is, right? Because it's a waste of space. It makes me crazy.
It's reading too. Really? You're playing an adventure and we can't assume the fire? Maybe that's just for arson. I don't know.
As we know, starting fires is harder than one would think.
Yeah, like
I don't know. Well, the premise is
we've assumed that you've survived adventuring up until this point.
Right,
and
yeah,
what is your character? Nobody's playing a 12-year-old, not generally. I mean,
Right.
maybe once or twice just for giggles, but
right. No, I agree.
yeah.
So my thing is, it's just you're limited to the space you have on the character sheet as it is. So I don't like having. It's the same argument about your spell slots thing, where if you're not going to use all of these things, then why is it printed on there? The vast majority of these skills are probably going to be bought by.
You still have like survival and urban survival on. So many things you ought to know how to do if you survive.
Well,
like,
and then to be fair, I suppose it also depends on what the game focuses
Cooking.
on. So if the game focuses on really specific skills, and that's the major part of the game, which I'm good with that. Whatever. Yeah, it's maybe not the game for me. Maybe that's important, but that's what this game is telling me when I see the character sheet. Is look at how important all of these skills are.
I guess maybe the only other reason I could see that it would be is you'd look at what your character's picked for skills and be like, oh, well, that's the kind of game to play. These are the things you thought would be relevant. All right.
Right. True.
You took cartography, botany, boating. That's not where I saw this going.
Well, let's compare that list with this 7C character sheet.
Okay.
We have
I don't remember having skills. Yeah, I just remember running around like a maniac and stabbing things.
16. There are 16
like a pirate.
skills. True. But there's 5 statistics, and you can go back and listen to our discussion about that, because I'm really in that 4 to 5 range, I feel like is a sweet spot. But there are there's 2 columns of 8, so 16 skills, right? 1 to 5. And I'm going to say that White Wolf did it first. I don't know for certain, but the dots, right? You fill in the dots.
That's like my favorite trait.
What's that? Oh, yeah.
Panache. That should always be. Who needs charisma? You have panache.
Je ne sais quoi.
So great.
Yeah. So I just okay. Let me do this. If I took this Hackmaster character sheet, and I'm not going to count them because I don't want to be here all day, but there are 3 columns, and it looks like at least probably 30 skills per column, right? Maybe give or take. Right. So if I look at this skill list, I cannot tell you what this game is about. Right. So I look at the skill list, and it has administration, agriculture, animal empathy, herding, animal training, appraisal, larceny, mathematics, mining, carpentry, crafting, religion, divine lore, fast talking, first aid, forestry. This could be about anything, right? Which I guess if you want a game that can do anything, I guess, whatever. But if I look at the 7C character sheet, I see aim, athletics, brawl, convince, tempt, theft, warfare, weaponry, sailing, perform. It tells me what this game is about, right?
Yeah.
And so, and this is where I would also point to, like, if you want the game that can be about anything, think about how wide open the universe of World of Darkness is, right? We've got, at one end, we've got a game of vampire where it's about being a terrible monster, battling with what you used to be and what you're becoming, and feeding on people, right? Skillless is the same, almost like minus about maybe each game changes out like 3 or 4 skills, right? Wraith, dealing with what the fact that you died, how do you wrap up your life and pursuing some kind of unlife. Changeling, being a survivor from being kidnapped by the Fae and all this kind of stuff, right? But all those skills, like that game is as broad as you can get. And there are 3 columns of what? 8 skills maybe, So what are we?
Not as broad.
Okay.
No, I mean, they're all about horror, basically. And like, you're not going to go be a carefree pirate in any of these games.
No, but hang on.
You're not going to go to culinary school and like start a career as a chef in any of these games.
But you're not going to do that with Hackmaster either. But hang on. Stick
Right,
with
but
me.
I'm just saying it's
Stick
not
with
for
me, though.
anything.
No, but you could make any character with a World of Darkness character.
You could make any, like, someone kind of before.
Right.
But it's still World of Darkness. It's a terrible, dark place, and you tell terrible, dark stories.
Okay.
That's what it's for.
I don't disagree. I'm just saying that their skill list is pared down a whole lot more, and you can make any kind of character you can fathom, right? And this has twice as many skills on it, right?
I don't know about this system versus the World of Darkness system. You add a lot of flavor to what your character can and can't do as special.
True.
Which would be anything.
As broad
like
as you want.
literally anything.
Okay, but also you're not monopolizing space on the character
no,
sheet
I think
for
it's a better way to
specialties.
do it.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. And the same thing is
But I'm
true
just
with...
saying, I'm guessing that this
the
probably
Genesis.
doesn't have any like
Right.
extra.
But I think this is a great example of, like, look at how sparse this character sheet is for 7C.
I actually,
Why?
because it doesn't look very 7C other than their logo. Nothing about this like is indicative of 7C. Like
Right.
the font is boring. All of the fonts are boring. It's got like block
I don't disagree.
colored bars at the top. Like it looks looks like a boring game.
It is very functional.
Or maybe like I don't know what's happening here.
Uzumaki. Yeah, no, I agree. But I guess outside of the aesthetics of it, it's very open. Like, it tells you what's important because there's so little there, right? That these are the 16 skills that you're going to have, right? Bam, this is what's important. The language that they choose to use for what skills are on the character tells you what is important in the game. The fact that it lists panache and not charisma or not leadership or,
brawn.
Yes.
And that subtle, change.
Finesse, wits, not intelligence, not brains, not smarts, wits, right? I think this is one of the most overlooked things that we just don't talk about and I think it's gotten a lot better. There's a lot more people that they're putting a lot of thought into the way the character sheets are put together and that kind of stuff. But there's this direct connection, you as the player and the rule. This character is the mediator between those two things, right? And so it's got to evoke feel. It's got to be functional, and it's got to actually be useful, right? If there's nothing worse, like on this Hackmaster one, I guarantee you, if you told me to find something on this, unless I was an expert in this game,
unless you'd played times,
right? I'd be fumbling on. And I know how to play the game. I know how to run the game, and I'm still fumbling on this thing, right? Whereas, the familiarity of the World of Darkness character sheets, like you mentioned, it's just great. So even if you've never played Changeling before, ever, you know how a World of Darkness character sheet is, you know where to find it, right? And even if you don't,
it's got big fat labels on it. The labels kind of get lost a little bit because there's so much other business. These are like very prominent, like attributes, flaws. Like it's easy to look at.
And you know what? I'm going to draw 2 highly thematic games. Dust Adventures, Dieselpunk, and 7C. Almost the same amount of skills, right? I'm going to guess it's probably pretty close to 16 skills. 4 statistics, right? Now this side by side, this is a perfect example. Boring 7C character sheet, functionally great, right? Dust,
still kind of a boring character sheet.
But you don't think this looks like some kind of a military record sheet?
Kind of, yeah. But where's the pulpiness of Dust Adventures? It's nowhere. It's nowhere at all.
Okay.
Sure, I could buy military personnel with this, but I'm not getting any of the pulp. He's sad.
True. Okay. Fair enough. Right on.
So while we're talking character and everything, this game you love, what you think about this character, sir?
Okay, so this is Mothership. So Mothership tickles a fancy place in my heart because have we reviewed? I don't think we have. We really should. So I am
like we put it in.
Okay. So I'm of 2 minds about this character sheet. One, I am amazed by what this character sheet is because you can find the Mothership character sheet online if you've never played it or not even interested in it. It's basically sci-fi horror. So things like Alien and 2001, that kind of thing, right? What I like about this character sheet is that I don't even need the book. You can give me this character sheet. It's like a worksheet. If I can see where number 1 is, I follow the arrows and directions, and I can make a character. I think that is amazing. I think Mothership showed in terms of layout, information design, all of that stuff, it challenged a lot of ideas that we had in gaming, both in terms of the way the book is put together and more importantly, the way the character sheet is put together, right? That said, I have found it kind of frustrating because there's some places where I feel like there's a lot of wasted space and it seems kind of busy.
It located.
It does.
What I like about it though is design-wise, it looks like a wiring diagram, which I think is cool.
Well, it's like pick down lists, like you would,
And I'll say, like I sat down, and when somebody walked me through it, it was really simple and really easy to get it done and to write it down. But if you did it to me, I would be a little bit intimidated because it does look complicated.
So that's what I will say is, and this is something that we could point to with the book as well. The book is, I think, 40 some pages, 44 maybe, in the zine format, and it is a full, complete RPG. Not like a zine RPG, like, there's holes in it or whatever. It's a complete RPG. And so I think that the idea that they were challenging the assumptions about what things could be, and that's part of the reason why it's set up the way it is. Now, there is another one that I've seen made that I actually prefer just a little bit better. But I mean, the difference we're talking about, like this is 100% functional, works 100% of the time. It's great. It's impressive. It changed the way that I saw this kind of stuff. Do you know what I mean? Oh, yeah. No.
Look at that bad boy.
That's okay. So Lacey is referencing the very narrow notes section,
but it's there.
But I feel like this is almost non-functional. Because it's so narrow. It's a narrow column. It's maybe 2 inches wide, 2.5 inches wide.
Encourage you to be concise and write small.
But I would rather have this.
I also have the whole back of the character sheet because it's only one-sided.
No, I'm okay with that. I would actually be rather that this would be gone and you have the expectation you want me to write on the back as opposed to this kind of awkward space that's here. So because I would rather have it if you took the same amount of real estate and just smashed it down into more of a rectangular box where it's the size that actually people write. That would make more sense to me.
You know what though? We talked about character sheets and you can tell what a game encourages by looking at it. If your character sheet has no space for notes, that's not very encouraging for me to keep track of what's going on.
I guess you're right. Yeah. Hang on.
What are you saying about your game if you have no place for me to write what's happening? And most of them don't. I know. I don't know. I'm just picking at you a little bit because, well, how am I supposed to know I'm supposed to do it if you don't put it on the character sheet?
Because it's a role-playing game. That's all good.
How many role-playing games did you play before you started? Before you're like, oh, I guess I needed to remember what happened 6 sessions ago.
No, I think probably right away.
No, I did at the beginning. I was not taking it that seriously.
Well, I mean, at that time, I think we weren't playing. We didn't have a lot. The reason,
I didn't know there was going to be a purpose to what we were doing here.
Well, no, but like, I think the difference in that, though, is when you're younger and you're playing and you're like, you know, whatever, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15. Like, how much do you have really going on in your life that's trying to boil around in your head, right? Whereas, you know, now you've got career and family and, you know, all this other stuff you're trying to juggle. So, yeah, I kind of have to make those notes because my brain is full.
So the character sheets aren't up here. I shut up.
Okay. I'll wait on you.
The character sheets for it aren't up here, but the Invisible Sun game, because I feel like we can't talk about character sheets without talking about that.
True. Well, there's a couple things to mention, but yeah, so the Invisible Sun character sheets are highly stylized for whatever your
character type.
Yeah, so whether you're a goetic, a
weaver,
maker, and whatnot,
etc. And they're vastly different.
So what do you think?
I can never figure out where I'm supposed to write anything. I can't stand it. They're very pretty. And I can't think of what it was that Simon's playing, but his character sheet is literally just like
there's no
black outlining of like random boxes and circles, and there's no labels of any kind, which, okay, that's fine. I'd almost prefer that to something that has half the labels.
Well,
because then at least I'm not wondering where I'm supposed to write that. Like, I'll just label this box spells, and that's where I'm going to write that from now on. But
I like the idea of it, but the practicality of it is very hard because
it's functionally poor. Like, the form is fantastic, but it's functionally poor.
Well, when we're sitting at a table together and I'm looking at my thing and I'm trying to do what I'm doing, and I'm like, you know, like, you can help me player to player, show me where things are. And so, and most games, I would imagine, most people want to kind of spread across the spectrum to get, you know, a maker and a weaver, you know, and a goetic or whatever, so that you're not going to have that overlap. You know, like, unless you're intimately from another one of the character types, it'd be very hard at all. There's one more that I had. Oh, so you mentioned a little bit about PBTA stuff, and there's loads of different PBTA games that run the spectrum all over, right? But one of the things that I like about PBTA the most is that I can hand you a character sheet, and like, none of these tell you how to play the game. So I've got this veritable spreadsheet of accounting with Hackmaster. I've got something very clean and concise and almost nothing in Morkborg or Don't Rest Your Head. I have pared things down that tell you what the game is about by 7th C with a short skill list. I've got, you know, a BX LOTFP character sheet, very clean, you know, not a whole lot on it. And yet, none of these character sheets tell you how to play the game, right? The best we have is with Mouse Guard has some rules reference on it, but that's just rules reference, right? And one of the things that I think that is really cool about PBTA is that when I give you your playbook for any PBTA game, basically, it has every rule you're going to need almost on it, right? That in a basic move sheet, and you're off for the races. You're ready to go, right? And that is one of the coolest things that I've seen as far as like innovations go to character sheets for newer games. Right now, PBTA has been around for quite a while now, but like,
well, and you couldn't do that with just any. Like, there's such a concise choice set. Like, so it's not an endless. Like, it's these 5 things, and you pick 2 of these 5 things. There are no other choices. It's not 20 things to choose from in a book. Right. Like, it's limited, and that makes that possible. But yeah, you're right. Every player has their own rules reference sitting right in front of them.
I think it's really cool the way it's laid out that way and designed that way. And then if you look at Spirit of 77, how you have all this feel and theme put into it, like the way it's, you know, like a rap sheet or whatever, and you got to fill it out and whatnot. And like, it's a great way to have a highly stylized playbook and character sheet that evokes theme and feel.
I would Bedlam Hall character sheet for that reason. You get like the character portrait on the front, and you fold it up like flap style, and it makes a door. So it's like you standing in front of the door of this manor, and then you open it up, there's stuff inside.
Right. Well, and your secrets are written inside there behind the doors, you know, like skeletons in the closet kind of a thing, you know. So yeah, there's a lot of really cool things, you know, going that way.
I don't so I'm going to ask, because one of my favorite character sheets out here, the halved trifold LARP character sheet. Was that something that you guys made, or are the LARP character sheets actually designed that way?
No, they're not made up.
Okay.
We designed them.
They're perfect.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I don't know whose genius idea that was. And they're perfect for LARP too, because it is one-sided, but you fold it in half and then you fold it in thirds. So it's like pocket size, but then you can unfold it and open it up, and you have all of your special secrets and reminders written on the inside where nobody can see them.
Right. So the first one that I got was a Winchester by Night. Now, I don't know if that's like Winchester, Ontario, or wherever it was. But that's the first character sheet that was laid out that way that I saw, right? Where you folded it in half down the middle, and then you folded that into threes, and you had like these sort of 6 boxes that unfolded. And then we had that one, and then we had some people, myself included, to have some layout skills or whatever, and kind of put it together. And then because we ran so many LARPs, and that's a game where you either learn to make your own stuff because every game is custom for your own location. So you either make it or you just don't worry about it. And that got refined down like through several iterations over several years. So
a collective genius.
yeah, pretty much. Because there were like me and Travis and JD were the main ones that were behind trying to get that put together. And then it was a matter of playing and running games and watching what do people use the most, right? So it's like traits and abilities. Okay, that's what the fast. Yeah. Well, and then I guess LARP, I didn't even think about it, but LARP made me really see character sheets in a different way because in LARP it's happening right now, right? It's real-time role play. So it's not like, hang on, let me look at my charisma plus my persuade. Okay, so I got 10 dice, So in making those, we wanted to make things run as quickly and concisely and seamlessly as possible. So it was very, very streamlined down. And like, that's a game where just like White Wolf, these are the only skills that exist. And then we had a spot for like 5 blank ones you could fill in if you had like some oddball ones or whatever. But really helped me think about character in a different way where it was like, this needs functional and we need to have access to it now. Because if I'm having an argument with you and I'm going to try and dominate you, I want to know that like whether it's going to work right now and not have to have a 5-minute rules arbitration and try to get back into the moment of what's happening.
Well, and the White Wolf character sheet lends itself nicely to split up like that because it's divided into 3 sections to start with. Yeah. But yes, those are probably my best example of functional characters. So perfect.
Well, and then we try to do things where you would, pull the borders, White Wolf stuff, so you could incorporate.
Get fancy with it.
Yeah. Well, you wanted to have that same feel because you wanted to be able to look at them like, oh, this is a vampire character sheet. I can tell you're trying to lean on that property or whatever. Right on. So besides those ones, right? Do you have a favorite character sheet for a game? Whether
It's great. They have a very nice character sheet.
To be fair, it's...
But again, like your character usually necessarily a lot of room, and that's why I sort of don't mind the notes for it being half a page because
the other part of it, though,
I haven't needed more than that yet.
It's a very straightforward game, so that there's less to manage in terms of what you have to have on the sheet because of that, right? So there's some things that they benefit from because of.
Honestly, it's just the busyness of everything, just a chalkboard. So I like that it's so talking about Harlan. There's about it that I.
Okay, so what?
The just pictures of the dice. Instead of writing a number, I just fill in the number of pips that are supposed to be represented. Like, it's just as clear, but it just sort of makes the character sheet more interesting. And it doesn't take away from the functionality of it at all.
Okay.
When it does that. I like the fact that there's a combination of shapes. So I have squares, diamonds, triangles, circles. It just adds a little bit of visual interest and separates the kinds of things that they are. You know what I mean?
Well, it groups clearly. Even like they have a border around the things, but even more squares or diamonds.
Yeah, so all my savings are diamonds, stats are squares. The thing I don't like, though, are these spell things. They look cool.
Yeah.
But I don't think it says anywhere in there how I'm supposed to use them. Like, what am I supposed to write in here?
So I'll show you. If you use the...
No, I feel like you showed me once. I just really hate it. I just don't like it.
I don't disagree.
It's one of those things that adds form but not function.
I agree.
I don't think it makes it any easier.
I'll agree.
It just makes it confusing.
Yeah.
But they look neat.
No, I would rather lose those and have that space, something else, and just have a second for spells. Because to be honest, I don't need to track how many spells I have per day on this and have another spell page.
Right.
You can put it all. That's fine.
Yeah, spell page for spellcasters, just like the D thing.
Yeah. No, I agree. Well, and that's the way the ones that print off.
Although I guess you could argue with this, the skill list taking space. You're not a specialist.
True. Very true. Although if you use the Eldritch Cock, you get skills 1 at 3. I've seen some discussion about people about how they try to manage that because from the games we've played, it can be terribly frustrating. It's like, okay, everybody make a search check.
Yeah,
and
I'm never gonna...
Yeah, okay, cool. I failed again.
If there's no specialist in your party, you're never gonna...
Well, my character's
like Trail
a fighter.
of Cthulhu, right? Like, I guess just give it to them because they'll never fight it on their own.
Right, yeah. So I'm of 2 minds about it. But at the same time, this, between this and Morkborg, these are my 2 fantasy D&D-ish games that I want.
Oh, sorry.
Right on. So I don't know if I have a favorite character sheet. I really like, as sad as it is, the mouse guard ones that we use are all like white. There's no background to them or whatever. But I really like this character sheet. I don't know. I always have. I think it's more because of the mouse that's on it and the way that the encumbered stuff works.
Well, I like the little bits of art that don't fear what's going on. It's such a full art heavy game, comics and graphics.
So I'm going to show you 3 different versions of what I like. I already talked about mouse guard. Mothership, because this is reeks of theme and feel and it's about as functional functional as you can get. And then I like World of Darkness with just how big the game is and how far apart the games are, and yet understanding the foundations of World of Darkness makes every other World of Darkness game sort of accessible. You know what I mean? And then you can see where they've influenced other games because, to Genesis. I'm like, look at that. This may as well be, when you look at it, it's very close to being
right.
a World of Darkness hack. And if you, just by looking at the character sheet, right?
Well, the system, the dice system is very reminiscent of skill.
So I have one final question for you before we finish this one out.
I actually,
Oh, did you?
yeah, because I like that all the skills are just listed directly underneath, and it's like the core stat is listed first in bold, and then the subset underneath.
So if you look, this new Chronicles of Darkness.
I know it's done the other way on some of the World of Darkness sheets. It actually, the column is below. Yeah, I know.
This is classic World of Darkness.
I like this layout better.
Yeah. No, I disagree.
It's a better layout.
I agree.
Things follow naturally from top to bottom.
So what about games where you interest B, you make your own? It's not really a character sheet for that. You write it out. Does that bother you?
It's been so I can't really say that I properly remember to. I mean, Dread is like that. I print them out. I do them.
Questions,
but it's just questions and answers. It's like being given a short essay test. Like fill this out yourself and summarize for me. But no, I don't. It works well for the kind of game that is. Not really. There's a statue. You can like, okay, well, I'm practicing at this. Okay, it says you are in your bio, so fair enough. The test is easier for you, but the test is still pulling blocks out of a tower. So I don't need a +1 or +2 for that.
Well, we've got a few other ones I suppose we should probably give honorable mentions to that we have laying up here. We've got a fake character sheet, Burning Wheel we already mentioned, Trail of Cthulhu, Cult, Monster Hearts, DCC, and MC.
I don't even know. There's a lot. Colonial Gothic,
Unisystem, so All Flesh Must Be, that kind of stuff. So
Dungeon Crawl.
So there's, I don't know, it's just one of those weird things where I just thought might be interesting to just sort of sit down and geek out about characters. So I guess if you're putting your own stuff together or designing your own games and that kind of stuff, it's just something to think about, that whatever goes on the character sheet, or if you look at a game you're thinking about getting into or whatever, give the character sheet once over, because that character sheet tells you really what the game is about or what they think it's important. Because if it's not important to the players or it's not important to the character, it doesn't go on the character sheet, right? And that's exactly what the game is about. It's telling you what the characters are going to be pursuing or what they need to pay attention to. All right, well, as you know, I'm a member of the Gonna Geek Network, so you can head over to GonnaGeekNetwork.com and check out all the other geek content over there. And if you like what we do here at Just More Fix, you can head over to Patreon.com/JustMoreFix and join our awesome patrons over there and get access to all of our raw audio feeds and pre-shows, as well as our zines in print or PDF format. And join the awesome ranks of our Patreon supporters like Alan White, Simon McNair, Paul Hubbard, Alistair H., Timothy Barra, Hector Trelane, Tiziano Ferlano, and the OG Titles. I think that'll do it for us, and we will see you all next week. Thanks for listening. This has been an episode of Just One More Fix. Music has been provided by Kevin MacLeod. You can find him at Incompetech.com. You can support us at Patreon.com/JustOneMoreFix or follow us on Twitter at Just One More Fix.